me turn this down. Good morning, listeners. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from Key Largo. Happy Thanksgiving. It's not a live show. I'm having some network issues, so I'm doing a recording. But it is Thanksgiving, and we have a beautiful Thanksgiving day. I'm looking around. I'm in my family room. It's sun shining. It's in the low 70s. Light breeze. It's just beautiful down here. Maybe I'm going to get a picture of it outside of the weather here. And I hope you're having a wonderful day and you have a lot to be thankful for. We had our Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. It wasn't as busy as it normally is. I always say, every year I say, Wednesday night before Thanksgiving is one of the biggest drinking nights of the year. We didn't have a big crowd last night. We did all right, but it wasn't. We've had busier Wednesdays on regular Wednesdays. Who knows, right? Thanksgiving's a little different. The title of the show is going to be Thanksgiving 2021. Traditions are pretty much intact. Sorry about the ruffling of papers. I wrote down notes. Yeah, I write down notes when I get an idea so I don't forget about it. People say, it seems like when you get on the podcast, Jim, you just don't know what you're going to talk about. And I said, I try to structure it. I try to structure the podcast. You know, always recently, and if you remember from the first time I started doing a podcast in 2017, I did talk about cocktails and things like that, but mainly it was kind of like a bitch session on what I liked, what I didn't like, and what people like and what they didn't like. You know, things like that. And it's kind of, I don't know. But I'm back to talking about cocktails again. And it's a themed cocktail. This time of year, and then we're rolling into it, and I'm going to blow my load on bitching about the number one, I'm going to call it a Christmas cocktail because it's traditionally a cocktail with booze in it. It's eggnog. And people say, well, eggnog's not just for Christmas. And I'm saying, yeah, I know sometimes people drink eggnog the rest of the year, but it's kind of like the pumpkin spice latte of the 20th century because it only came out during the Christmas season. And people say, well, I like it anyway. I said, well, how many times a year do you drink eggnog when it's in? Do you drink eggnog in February or October? I mean, nowadays, excuse me, I'm going to have to clear my throat. Nowadays, you're going to see that more often because we started celebrating Christmas right around Labor Day. Excuse me, I'm going to pause this for a moment. Well, yeah, the phones are ringing right now. It's holidays, so you're going to get family members calling up. I don't want to be distracted. I can always catch up to talk to my sister. She would have sent me a text if it was an emergency. But, you know, and Thanksgiving is one of a catch-up thing, so I don't want to really bust a move here. So, eggnog, I said, well, how often do you drink eggnog in the summertime? It's kind of gross. And I won't get into details. Since it's a Thanksgiving show, I'm not going to be cursing as much, not because of propriety. Well, kind of because it's Thanksgiving. Kind of like the way you behave in church. You try not to say fuck or shit. I hope you don't. But then again, they're just words when you say things like that. Why would you... why would, you think God's ears, if you believe, you think God's ears are that sensitive? No, I don't think they are. I think he heard it all, and I don't think he's offended by it. How can he be offended by it? He invented volcanoes, and people live on side of volcanoes, and every so often they erupt and destroy people. What is the worst thing in the world? That's not saying the word fuck. It's being on the side of a volcano when it erupts. So, this series of magnitude there. So let's get back to the cocktails and stuff like that. So ever since then, just like Christmas songs, there's some Christmas songs like White Christmas, Winter Wonderland, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. They're tried and true and been around for years, right? And then you have every so often, every 10 years, maybe another song pops into the mix that lasts. I can think of just a couple. In the 80s, it's a song by the Waitresses, Christmas Wrapping, and then there was the rap song, The Night Before Christmas. I think it was, I don't know who it was. I think it was Run DMC. Run DMC did a rap, and that was a good one. That was the one that was in, I don't know if it is a classic, but it was in Die Hard. And then in the 90s, the song by Mariah Carey, which I won't say because it will have been played a million times already. And there's probably another. There's the one, Do They Know It's Christmas After All? That was in the 80s, I guess. And I don't know if a new Christmas song has popped around. It seems like Christmas songs just all sound the same now. They're slightly country, at least in the U.S., slightly country and things like that. So Christmas songs, Christmas cocktails, you have eggnog and it gets bourbon and a little nutmeg on top. And then there's kind of like things, a cranberry. You could do a lot of things with a heated cranberry. Kind of apple cider, spice apple. But nowadays, if you think about it, they show it on TV. When it's on the news, it'll be the public interest section. They'll talk about something, a local bar crafts its own steak martini. Well, they'll just take turkey and they'll grind it up and they'll put some vodka in it, maybe gizzards, and they'll make a turkey martini. And some person will drink it just for the sake of saying they drank a turkey martini. Right? Just the sake to do it. It's just like those tomahawk steaks. You ever see a tomahawk steak? It's a really high-end restaurant. They got a high-end restaurant here in Miami. And it costs, you buy this 40-ounce tomahawk steak. It could be a little bigger. And they put gold leaf on the outside and it costs a couple $1,000. Just to say they did it. And it's obviously with people that, hopefully it's people with the disposable income. They're not using 1/4 of their earnings to purchase a steak, because that would be a poor choice of investment. What did you do this year? Well, I took 10% of my income and I spent it on a steak covered in gold foil. So I'm in charge of thinking of a Christmas cocktail to put on there, something holiday, put on the special. So what I'll probably do is we have caramel vodka. We have apple. That would be more, caramel apple would definitely be more Halloween. So I'd have to come up with something else. Something with a cinnamon. Cinnamon, caramel, cranberry. Help me out. Send me some of your suggestions. I'm going to try to put something together. And what I try to do is I'll simulate it with a non-alcoholic, just the mixers, realizing that the alcohol is not going to do much, change the taste profile of a cocktail, unless it's all alcohol. One of my favorite ones when I was still drinking was, I don't even know what it is. It's Bailey's and Frangelica. I don't know. Oh, gosh. There was a name for it, I forgot it. That was the nature of being the old Keys bartender. So today we got up, beautiful day, parades going on. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, kind of a tradition. You watch new artists come up and cover their own song. You watch old artists. They had Foreigner, and the guy sounds exactly like it does in 1985. Yeah, 1985. He's singing, I Want to Know What Love Is. And his backup singers were, in that particular song, was a African-American choir. And they had a bunch of, there were adults in the original song, if you ever see the video. Not that you're Foreigner fans and stuff like that. But the sad part is they roll them out on a float, and they're piping in the 1985 version. The whole thing is obviously is that, and they're pretending to sing on the float. I mean, is that even a thing nowadays for entertainment in bars? I know they do karaoke where people come in. There was a guy that used to come in and play his own. I think he's still around too. He'd bring his own music in for his own karaoke, but it was his own songs that he was performing. Pretty bad songs. He's a guy called the Pirate. And we just thought it was music, and he was piping in the words because obviously he knows the words. It was his own song. And one time he was singing at Gilbert's, one of our local big tiki bars in North Key Largo. He's singing it at a karaoke night, which I didn't frequent, but I was bartending, filling in for a friend of mine who we're going to be talking about too, about her. I'm filling in for a friend of mine. This guy comes up, gives a CD to the guy, the DJ, and he starts singing when the music starts playing. And then all of a sudden, the music cuts out. But it's a really small venue. And when the music cuts out, there is no sound. His mouth is still moving. His mouth is still moving. And the DJ is looking at me. It was about 25, 30 feet away. And then I walk over to him and said, "Were you trying to say something to me?" He said, "Yeah, when the music cut out, the guy his mouth kept on moving, but he wasn't making any sound. So he goes, "Oh, I wanted to show you when it pops on. I'm going to pop it on before he starts singing. Watch." And he pops it back on, and there he is singing. He brings in a CD of him singing on karaoke night. He doesn't even sing. He just stands up there and mouths it. Much like the former artist or the has-been artist on Thanksgiving Day. I should say has-been. They're making plenty of money. I don't understand why you would go in a parade when the last time you released an album was like 30 years ago, 35 years ago, whatever time. Maybe they released an album in the late 90s, I don't know. But they're going to go on a reunion tour, and if it's going to be much like the Thanksgiving Day parade, what's going to be is them standing on stage playing the music, maybe, or just playing recordings of them singing in the 1980s. They used to have bands like that. They had in the 80s, I think it was the 80s, Beatlemania. There was a name of a band called Beatlemania, and all they did was play Beatles songs. When they had perfectly good video of the video or film of the band, the Beatles, playing the original songs. So people would go to concert watching a band dressed like the Beatles sing Beatles songs instead of listening to the Beatles. Kind of interesting, huh? Just a concept. It's like people going to a play that the kids in, and they're filming. A lot of people make commentary like this, I realize that. But they're filming, instead of watching the event as it happens, they're recording the event. And we all know what happens with all the pictures and recordings that we make. We make so many pictures and recordings of these special events, right? That we don't experience. We experience the recording. We're paying attention to the recording. Unless you can just hit record and just hold it up and pay attention while you're holding it, that's good. Because we do so many of them. Once you have such a collection, you don't even watch it again. It used to be a thing. Now, before Facebook and all these social media sharing, that people would, when they made a recording or a tape, or VCR tape of VCR recording of their kids, football game or concert or a play they were in. It was an event, and they'd have to have people over, give them drinks, get them drunk enough. We say, hey, how about we look at this tape of little Jimmy playing the farmer in this play, and he talks about the basic food groups. I was a farmer in a play back in, I guess that would have been 51 years ago, outside of Washington, D.C. But they didn't have, they did have Super 8 cameras and things like, I think they had 8mm cameras and 16mm cameras. But there's so many videos now that they just share them on social media. But people would get people, they wait until they're good and drunk at a social function and say, hey, you want to watch a wedding video? You weren't at the wedding because I didn't invite you. But you're welcome to look at the video. No, they may not have known the person at the time. Oh, that's a big... who watches a wedding video after that? And what are you trying to relive? Aren't you creating any new memories or something like that? You have to go back to what you thought was going to be the greatest day of your life, but in retrospect, may not have been the greatest day of your life. Just your most expensive day in your life, other than buying a house. Or signing up to go to college. The most expensive. Well, for certain people, it's your wedding day is the most expensive day of your life. That includes buying houses, paying for education, things like that, because a poor choice in a marriage isn't one day. It's a lifetime. Happy Thanksgiving. Why am I saying that? It's horrible. I'm sorry about that. I take it all back. There's a lot of weddings out there marriages that are good and provide lots of memories. A lot of happy memories. I'm just talking about the cost of them. The cost I was just tapping on the cost, but why? That's very morose. I'm thankful for my relationships that I've had and have now. So talking about food, we are defrosting. It's a passive. Defrosting a turkey is a passive thing, isn't it? Unless you put it in the microwave. The turkey's dry enough. Do you want to put in zap it with, do you want to nuke it, dry it out a little more? So I'm going to be trying out a new recipe, cooking it upside down for a while and then flipping it up. And I'm going to see how that works out. I don't know. Gee, I'm willing to do anything once. You only have turkey once a year, and I'm always trying something new with that. Because really, I've only been cooking turkey like 5-6 times. Yeah, 5-6 times. I've done a lot of chicken, but not turkey. If turkey was so popular, you'd be selling all year round, right? And now the price of turkeys, there's people having a hard time finding turkeys, and they're expensive. You get a big ass turkey, costs maybe 60, 70, 80. Jim, I paid $90. Well, that's like one of those organic free range turkeys. Maybe. And why would you want to eat something that had such a horrible, just had such a great life, and in the end, we're fattening you up and then we're going to eat you? Because these other ones, they were torturing, kind of. I can't believe I get on this. Is it the coffee? I don't know why I'm going on this direction. I'm going to change that direction. But I'm going to be trying that turkey thing out. It takes 4 hours to find out if you made a mistake or not. Pretty much a mistake was made when you bought the turkey. Yeah? You picked something on the bottom rung of the poultry selection. John Madden decided turkey wasn't good enough, so they made a turducken where you put a chicken, a duck inside a chicken, inside a turkey. You have to debone all of them. Cram it in there. So, I don't know what the purpose of that is. and how good that tastes, because the only stuff that gets browned is on the outside, the turkey. So you have this kind of like pasty color. And I gotta get off this thing. But it's interesting, the things that people will decide that they're going to have. Like, they may or may not have had turkey at Thanksgiving, the original Thanksgiving. They may or may not. And a lot of times, if they were eating a bird, I bet a lot of it was raw. There probably wasn't stuffing. Mashed potatoes, no. So everything we're eating, I mean, they probably ate some squash. I'm sure they ate some squash. Corn. Some kind of game meat. And there probably, most likely, there wasn't any pumpkin pie, because there certainly wasn't any sweetener. Sweetener was hard to come by. If you look into your cupboard and you find sugar comes from the subtropics and tropics. Sugar cane, sugar beets. That's all comes from there. And I'll tell you, there were no sweets. They may have, I mean, after a hard winter, I could not imagine that any of the food stores left from England were still around. So that's what they had. And they probably had shellfish, too, if they were near the thing. They ate a lot of shellfish. So you get the oyster dressing and stuff like that. It may be accurate. But we'll be able to segue into this really nicely, because we're talking about these foods. Now, I mentioned many times, if people come in for happy hour, they come in for oysters. And why, I think oysters are considered a natural aphrodisiac. I see these people come in, and when it's an aphrodisiac, it's mainly a guy. It's almost like it makes you more virile. Right? And I mentioned before that I don't regularly eat things that they have to put warnings up in restaurants that eating this could make you seriously ill or kill you. So I choose not to eat that. And really, do you really chew on the oyster? People suck them down. They don't chew on a raw oyster and savor it. Some do. An aficionado of oysters to say, listen, this is from the James River, Zone 3. Yeah, they have zones where they get oysters from and stuff like that. That's how they categorize them. There's premium oysters out there that aren't necessarily, and people say, Jim, oysters come from the saltwater. Yes, and brackish waters too. So at the inlets where the oceans meet rivers, you'll find oysters. And good ones. Supposedly. But how many people that really order happy hour oysters? And they come in there and they order oysters at happy hour for $1. And they ask you, where are these oysters from? I'm like, why do you care? You came in for $1 oysters. Do you think they're going to be from Narragansett, Nova Scotia, Washington State? And people ask, are they oysters fresh? You say, oysters are oysters. They're either closed or not closed. If they're not closed, they're not fresh. They die, they open up. Oysters should be alive until the time they are served raw. God, kind of brutal, isn't it? You got to eat them right then. And they're still, I don't know when you open one if they die right away. So you may be eating them alive. So, and if you think that old husband's tale, I call it a husband's tale because the old wives' tale. I mean, women may have repeated the story, but mainly it's guys that believe it. They eat oysters. These old guys come in and eat oysters. I'm like, there's no way the oyster is going to help you with the situation you're trying to address. I mean, unless you're eating oysters for the joy of eating oysters. Some people will say, yeah, but they're doing it because it's a guy thing. Eating oysters. And you got to put horseradish on it. You got to put cocktail sauce on it. You got to put a little hot sauce on it. You put all that shit on something, you really don't like it. You really don't like it. The texture of it. Are you going to sit there and chew it? Chewing that oyster? And if you think it's going to help you with your virility, it may or may not, psychosomatic, may make you a little more virile. But there are things, they invented a little blue pill about 30 years ago that almost always makes you more, let's say, turgid or rigid or virile. And they make it so well that they put a warning on that one. Not that it'll kill you. Maybe it could kill you if you're not used to physical activity, but that you may have a prolonged erection. So it works so well. And it's a lot cheaper than a dozen oysters right now. And it won't possibly put you in the hospital with salmonella or botulism. I don't know necessarily what you would get from that. I don't really worry about it because I don't eat that stuff. And I try to wash my hands very, very, anytime I come in contact with it, just in brief contact. I just don't want it to get me. I said some horrible things about oysters, so I don't want it to be the only one to go to the hospital and say, yeah, the oysters killed him, but he wasn't eating them. That would suck. That would really suck. So one of the big staples of my Thanksgiving dinner is mashed potatoes. And yesterday we were open at the restaurant. What does this play into? Wednesday at the place I work is meatloaf day. Now meatloaf, green beans, and mashed potatoes. Thursday is turkey day. And they have turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, cranberry sauce. So they had both those items because we're not open today. Obviously, I'm not going to be here. Well, you won't know that because I could have went into work tonight, but I don't work today because we're not open. So we had 2 entrees with, as their major sides, mashed potatoes. And we had these friends of ours come in last night. I had some friends come in last night. Mary Kay, Kathy, and a new friend, Gina. And they were sitting at the bar, and we're just chatting away, laughing, having a good time, and all of a sudden, and they're getting, right in the beginning, I've never met this woman, Gina, and she says to me, excuse me, could you tell me what is in, what you get with the mashed potato platter? And I just stood there, and I said, mashed potato platter? I thought for a second, there was no mashed potato platter. It's just mashed potato was a side. But she had mashed potatoes on the mind, right? You could tell what her major thing is, mashed potatoes, because she said that. And I just stood and stared. Rarely, when you get a softball thing, a softball question, that's, I guess if you're a famous person, a softball question is, what movies why do you like making movies, blah, 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 whatever thing they're doing. Why are you what do you do to maintain your fitness level for football, whatever. And that's a softball question. Well, when someone throws in something like that, I should have a canned response. It's like mashed potato. I said, I was flabbergasted. I just looked at the other people. I said, is this a plant? Because they got me. Rarely do I not have something to say when someone says something like that. And, but they laughed. They thought I was doing it on purpose. When I looked around, I looked at them, each one in the eye, and then I looked over at the menu to see what I'm looking at the thing, and I looked at the lady again because she got me. And she got me. And about 10 seconds after, she goes, oh, what's... I said, well, I could tell you what isn't in the mashed potato platter. No potatoes. Everything's made from beef byproducts. And she just looked at me. And I said, listen, I didn't know what you were going to say there. That was a good one. I really appreciate it. And then we went on and talked about other subjects. I don't know how we got on we were talking about I was drinking coffee, and they said, well, what do you have to pee? And I said, well, like, I got to hold it in. And it said, like, I'm on the space station, right? Talked about the space station. International Space Station. I'm in space. I said, well, and catheters and things like that, and pee bags. Yeah, that's the way the conversation went, organically. And then we started talking about how you have to go to the bathroom in space. And then we're talking about diapers, and Mary Kay was a fire person at one time, and she was talking about maybe they use a vacuum. And I said, well, you have to watch that vacuum, sticking a vacuum up your butt, because you'd be afraid to take too much out, sucking that. So we're going back and forth, and someone says about venting into space. And I said, oh, that's a vacuum. That would vent your whole body out into space if you did something like that. We're going on and on. And that just started out because of mashed potatoes. Venting your poop into space. A shitty conversation, nonetheless. No, in the best possible way. It's funny. I'd like to say hi to Mary Kay, Kathy, and Gina. We were talking also last week. I wanted to talk about my being thankful for my family. My pet that just passed away last Sunday, Roxy. We're still thinking about her. This would have been a big day for her because she would have spent the whole day with us, sitting on the couch, getting treats and stuff like that from us, getting a lot of attention. She loves it when we're around. Sometimes she just goes and sleeps. Sometimes it's too much for her. Like too much for her. So we were just happy to have her in her life, and we were happy to have each other. But one of the people that helped us out with that was a bartender. Lala helped, one of my co-workers, and Michelle, one of my former managers at a restaurant I worked years ago. They all helped. But Amy, a bartender from a Caribbean club, she is in the pinnacle of the animal lover. She loves all animals. And I mentioned that Amy loved animals so much. If there were such a thing as vampires, and they could turn into vampire bats, she would make sure that you did not harm the vampire while it was a vampire bat, because it's an animal. Amy's that much of an animal lover. And same thing as werewolf. You could kill the werewolf when it was a human, but when it became a werewolf, it was an animal. So she might have, she may have like a different thing about it. But I knowing Amy, I know almost any animal, she would say, well, you don't have a right to do that. So I'm very thankful that there's people out there that would be helpful. Not about not killing werewolves and vampire bats. There's no such thing as either one of them. I know there are vampire bats scientifically. I'm talking about the ones in the supernatural where we switch between a human and that. Well, I'm going to end this show early. I do appreciate you, everyone out there, for sharing the episodes. It's helping our ranking. It's really helping our ranking. And the more episodes you do download, the higher ranks we have, especially in your markets when we get that. People say, well, if in Tennessee, New York, we got a lot of downloads in New York now. On Long Island, thank you. Tennessee, thank you. Pennsylvania, thank you. New Jersey, thank you. We're going to get, and Georgia, thank you. Wow, I never thought I'd get a big listenership in Georgia. I do appreciate that. But I do appreciate it. And then our foreign listeners. And I'm sure they're listening to the show and they say, what the hell is this holiday, Thanksgiving? I mean, just a national day of giving thanks, even though a lot of times when they're doing Thanksgiving, it's usually a time when there's a lot of controversy going on. Last couple of years, we were in last year was 2020. 2019, I'm thinking when COVID started there. I think it was 2 Thanksgivings we went through. The first one, no. I don't know. I'm trying to think. 2019, 2020 wasn't. Now people vaccinated. There's still kind of a resurgence. I don't want to cause any, controversy right there. But now people getting back into the swing of things. And then some people realize that, it was pretty good. Some people say it's pretty good, the old traditions and, getting people back together. And you see some really great commercials out there talking about it. Just the couple commercials we saw during the parade, they were mainly not pushing product. They were pushing an idea. Okay. One of them was pushing a line of products. Another one was just the idea, and they had strategically placed their product off to the side. One commercial was a cartoon. We didn't figure into the end what it was all about. And it just showed this person, the corporate entity that paid for it. And I guess in the end it just changed. It was for a company that I really didn't have kind thoughts for before, but they said, hey, they sent out a message, and that was a message, and then they're the ones that produced it at the end. I guess that means a lot. But for our foreign listeners, it's supposed to be Thanksgiving. Gratitude. That's it. I mean, they have it in Canada. I think they may have it in some other, but for different reasons, different dates. It's in October in Canada. Being thankful for the things you have and for the people you're associated with. That's it. I think that's pretty much what it boils down to. Here we have certain traditions, and it's tied to food, and there's regional variations, but mainly the one main thing, turkey. Second, it's either ham or prime rib. I don't know. I'm a prime rib guy. And you just eat. Like in many traditional ones in many countries. It's centered around food. And in the United States, there's normally one person doing the lion's share of cooking. Hopefully, that person isn't the person that's doing the dishes. Because there's so many side dishes that go along to it. Like, think of for my listeners in Taiwan, whatever your national holiday is, whether it's National Independence Day or Ancestor Appreciation Day, or whatever you have. In Christian countries, that would be Christmas, because it's similar to Christmas in its size in Christian households. The size and scope of the Thanksgiving. And in the United States, it's the biggest travel day is the day before and the day after. And it's usually followed by sales because it kicks off the Christmas season. And they have retail companies kick off their sales. So we got a lot going on. It's kind of like a big introductory preview of Christmas. That's what Thanksgiving's got. That's probably the best way to describe it. It says, what's Thanksgiving? Oh, Thanksgiving is your introduction to the Christmas season. And we eat the driest meat as possible on that day, which is the turkey. Now, obviously, it's the breast and the thighs. I mean, the legs that are the driest, and the thighs. And then you got the part underneath that probably stays moist. Hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. But listen, keep up those downloads. Share it with your friends and family. I do appreciate it, and I'm thankful for your listenership. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow.